Every self-help book tells you to be kind, be generous, be agreeable. But for 99% of human history, those were the people who got killed first. This isn't a video about becoming cruel. It's about understanding a brutal truth that modern life has conveniently buried and why ignoring it is still costing you. Let's go back. Not a few decades, not a few centuries. We're going back tens of thousands of years to the world that actually shaped the human brain you're using right now. In that world, there were no laws, no police, no social safety nets. If you were hungry, you took. If you were threatened, you fought. And if you were too open, too trusting, too giving, you were gone. Anthropologists studying ancient burial sites have found something chilling. The skeletons with the most healed wounds, meaning they survived multiple injuries, were overwhelmingly the dominant individuals in the group. Not the caregivers. The fighters. This is the part of human history nobody puts on a motivational poster. Survival for the vast majority of our existence was not a team sport. It was a competition. Now here's where it gets psychologically interesting. Researchers have identified what they call pro-social behavior, things like sharing, cooperating, and helping strangers. These behaviors exist in humans, but they come with a built-in calculator. That calculator is always running in the background, asking one question: what do I get back? Ancient humans who gave without expecting returns didn't pass their genes forward. The ones who gave strategically did. This is called reciprocal altruism. And it explains why human kindness has always had a limit, a biological ceiling that ancient nice people kept crashing into. Let's talk about the tribe. For most of human prehistory, you lived in a group of 20 to 150 people. Everyone knew everyone. Reputation was everything. And in that world, reputation wasn't built on how nice you were. It was built on how useful and how dangerous you were. Those two things. Nothing else. The person who was too agreeable, who never pushed back, who always yielded, they became the tribe's resource, not its leader, its servant. Anthropologist Christopher Boehm studied dominance hierarchies across hundreds of hunter-gatherer societies. His finding? Every single one had mechanisms to punish what he called upstarts. But they equally punished the submissive, those who couldn't hold their own. Being too dominant got you killed, but being too soft got you used. The ancient sweet spot was something closer to what we'd now call assertiveness, and ancient cultures built entire systems around it. In ancient Sparta, boys were taken from their families at age 7 and placed into the egoge, a brutal training system designed specifically to kill the nice out of them. They were deliberately underfed so they would learn to steal food. They were pitted against each other constantly, not to create cruelty, but to build the capacity to endure, take, and decide without hesitation. Kindness in Sparta wasn't banned, it was rationed. Reserved for allies, for those who earned it. Giving it freely to everyone was considered a form of stupidity. Now let's move to Rome. Julius Caesar is remembered as a brilliant military mind. But what made him truly dangerous wasn't his tactics. It was his ability to switch between generosity and brutality based on exactly what the moment required. He famously pardoned his enemies after the Civil War. But the moment those same enemies moved against him again, the mercy ended instantly. He never confused forgiveness with weakness, and he never extended it twice. That psychological switch, warmth when it builds loyalty, coldness when it protects power, is the exact trait that separated ancient survivors from ancient victims. Let's cross to Africa. Shaka Zulu built the most powerful military empire in southern African history, not through brute force alone, but through an absolute mastery of when to reward and when to punish. His generals knew that extraordinary loyalty would be rewarded with cattle, wives, and status. But failure, cowardice, or hesitation meant death. The stakes were never ambiguous, and that clarity of consequence is what produced extraordinary commitment. Now let's go even deeper, to the psychology underneath all of this. Because this isn't just history. These patterns are literally running inside you right now. Evolutionary psychologists have identified what they call the dominance-prestige dual pathway. In ancient societies, you could earn status through dominance, intimidation and force, or through prestige, skill, knowledge, and contribution. Here's the critical part. Both paths required the ability to hold your ground. Prestige without the capacity to defend it was just a target painted on your back. The nice people who failed weren't failing because they chose prestige over dominance. They were failing because they couldn't defend either. They gave status away instead of protecting it. There's a concept in primatology called the low status signal. And it's fascinating because many of the behaviors we're taught to see as polite, avoiding eye contact, speaking softly, deferring quickly, are the exact signals that trigger dominance behavior in others. In other words, the manners that modern culture rewards were, in the ancient world, the behavioral equivalent of ringing a dinner bell for predators. Now, you might be thinking, but cooperation exists in nature too. And you're right. But here's what gets misunderstood about cooperative species. Wolves cooperate, chimpanzees cooperate, ancient humans cooperated, but cooperation in nature is never unconditional. It is always built on a foundation of clear hierarchy and consequence. The omega wolf, the lowest in the pack, cooperates because it has no choice. The alpha cooperates because it strategically benefits the pack's survival, and therefore its own. There is no sentimentality in it. So where does this leave us? If ancient niceness was a death sentence and modern culture has swung too far toward unconditional agreeableness, what actually works? The answer has been consistent across cultures and centuries. It's what the Romans called virtus, what the Greeks called arete, what the Zulus encoded into their warrior culture, the disciplined capacity to be fully kind or fully hard, depending entirely on what the situation demands. This is not about performing toughness. It's not about suppressing empathy. It's about never letting your default setting become your only setting. The ancient world's most successful people weren't the most brutal. History remembers them as exceptional because brutality alone builds nothing. And they weren't the most generous. Generosity without strategy feeds everyone but yourself. They were the ones who understood a simple, uncomfortable principle. Your value to others must never exceed your value to yourself. The moment it does, you stop being an ally and become a resource. So the next time someone calls you too intense, too firm, too unwilling to just go along, understand something. That friction you're creating, that's not a flaw in your character. That's a feature your ancestors paid for in blood. The ancient world didn't destroy nice people because they were wrong. It destroyed them because they were unprepared. And in every era since, in offices, in relationships, in negotiations, the same mechanism is still running. Be kind. But be the kind that has edges, the kind that knows its own worth, the kind that the ancient world would have respected because it couldn't be taken advantage of. That's the version of you that survives, in any world, in any era, at any table.